Today's review is Shakespeare in Love. This is the 1998 winner for the Academy Award for Best Picture. To be sure, this is a movie with a lot of plate spinning. I'd say it has three main goals. First being a story about William Shakespeare, kind of a tribute to William Shakespeare too, and telling this story about how Romeo and Juliet came to be, and all the kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, but doing it in a way that very clearly throws historical accuracy out the window. Instead, kind of substituting it for a more accessible kind of story, a more fun and fancy-free kind of story with a lot more flavor to it than just seeing him at the writing desk and in torment writing it or anything like that. So it makes it a fun kind of movie in doing that, and it has really nice little in-jokes, references, things like that to Shakespeare. The running joke is the title of the play for the longest time is Romeo and Ethel, the Pirate's Daughter. Juliet might sound a little better. Juliet, okay. And in doing that, what it also tries to do, in its own way, it kind of tries to make it this sort of like commentary, having such a modern edge, making it this commentary on like modern Hollywood a little bit. There are the players, there are the actors, there's the hotshot writer, there's the producer, there's the money, there's the debt, there's the we got to put on a show or everything's at risk, and all the happenings behind the scenes and all. The little backroom deals and cast celebrations, things like that. So in its own kind of way, it does that, and I think it's pretty clever in doing so. Where you kind of stop to think this is centuries ago, but some things never change when it comes to trying to satisfy the masses. Try to get the butts in the seat, basically. But ultimately, what it's trying to do, in combination with these other things, is trying to show its own love story. And its own kind of Hollywood version of a love story. The tried and true kind of stuff, the star-crossed lovers, Will Shakespeare and Lady Viola, opposite sides of the tracks. She's rich, he's not. She's engaged to, betrothed to be married to, of course, get this, an asshole. And they fall in love and they fall for each other and everything that gets in their way, but this may not have a happy ending, but it doesn't mean the love isn't there. So all these things are combined, all these elements, all these plates spinning, where we have that kind of Hollywood satire, and we have all the little in-jokes with William Shakespeare and his plays, and seeing how Romeo and Juliet came to be. And through the love story, through the conflict in that, Viola as his muse, and learning that this might not have a happy ending, kind of affecting him, making him a little bit more pessimistic, and thus writing the way Romeo and Juliet turns out. And also with the plot of Viola wanting to act herself, wanting to act in the play, but of course being prohibited from doing so in those days, as women could not appear on stage. Her appearing as a man, inspiring him to write The Twelfth Night, the gender swap comedy. So all these things come together, and it's in a really clever way, I think. And it's a very charming movie, and it does have very funny moments, and the love story is pretty good. And I would say though, it's one of those movies where you kind of have to decompress to it a little bit. You have to let it. Draw you in. You have to let it. You have to succumb to its charms, basically. Much like with movies, like let's say, just for example, other acclaimed movies. Like say Juno or Moulin Rouge. I would say the same rule applies here, where it's like, okay, if you can make it past the first 15 minutes of this movie, you're going to be okay. So as long as you kind of get drawn in. I think it works its magic, and it does so in a great way. A very charming love story, and a very clever kind of mesh of all these elements. What definitely makes it work very well is the chemistry between the two leads, and it is a good love story. We have Gwyneth Paltrow here, who we've come to know and love from movies like, Seven, the Royal Tenenbaums, Shallow Hal, the Iron Man movies, all these great movies. She's here in a really great role. And Joseph Fiennes, who we've come to know and love through roles in movies like Shakespeare in Love. He's great playing Will Shakespeare. So I think it's the two, their chemistry that works really well. And all the other supporting characters here. I mean, I would say they're hit or miss with some of them. Colin Firth, who's usually really great, he is kind of maybe a little too one-noted as this kind of douchebag. I mean, he does what he has to do in the plot. Ben Affleck, I have no idea why he's in this movie, and his accent is not good. I don't know. He's all right. Jeffrey Rush is really great in the movie, though. He has his little catchphrase, "'Tis a mystery." I like him. He's pretty good. Tom Wilkinson also in the movie, but barely. He doesn't really make too much of an impression. And Judi Dench, who won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, despite being in the movie for only a couple of minutes. But you can kind of see why. Like, she's in there. She's the bad bitch running things. She brings the full movie to resolution because there are all these things kind of going on. Like writing the play, everything going wrong. The male actor who's supposed to be playing Juliet, a young kid, his balls drop before the play's opening night, and before he's like, "Oh, I'm Juliet," and then he's like, "Oh no, I don't know what happened." Kind of that kind of funny stuff. And a wager between the Colin Firth character and the Queen, the fucking Queen of England, Judi Dench. Can art really represent all that is true and beautiful about love, and all this kind of coming together? And she's kind of the one who kind of puts the hammer down, or throws the glove down, or whatever the expression is, and says, "Okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening." And she's good. She kind of runs the show in a mere few minutes. Also, Gwyneth Paltrow did win for Best Actress in a Lead Role, which is, I don't know, I'd say it's a warranted win. I mean, there's a lot more going on in this movie, particularly in her performance, than what we would maybe on the surface give her credit for. One thing, she's playing Viola, charming, in love with Will, and all that good stuff, but also doing the gender swap stuff, where I know it's kind of cheesy. She has a little beard, and everyone's supposed to suspend their disbelief and think that she's really a man, and no one seems to notice. To her credit, I mean, it's still a lot more convincing than thousands upon thousands of dollars of special effects makeup that they could use on the Wayans brothers in White Chicks. So there is that. So she's still convincing in that respect. But also, a third element to this, when everything's going wrong with the play, and she kind of steps up to play Juliet, and her performing as Juliet, and using everything, all the passion between her romance with Will, and all the despair in being engaged to another, and ultimately having to marry him, and being brought to America, the New World, and all of that sadness and regret and ultimately love that she feels, bring it into that final performance on the stage with Will playing Romeo. I think that's amazing. So I think she's really good. And there's just a lot of memorable scenes in the movie, a lot of nice lines, memorable lines. The Jeffrey Rush character, when everything is going on with the play, he's talking to Will, he's like, well, the show must, Will's like, "Go on." I don't know, it's kind of funny. "'Tis a mystery." He's good. And the romantic scenes, where one of the more memorable kind of visuals of the movie is how she is pretending to be a guy. She kind of puts the garment around her to hide her boobs, and he's like spinning her around, and it's kind of cute. It's nice. I don't know, and there's other kind of double entendres during this kind of montage of them meeting together and things like that. So I think it is a very entertaining and charming movie, and I think it does accomplish all the goals that it sets out to do. And I was charmed by the love story. I was charmed by Gwyneth Paltrow. She's a darling in this movie. What can you say? So I'd say without having seen every performance from that year, I'd say it's a good win for her as an actress. I'd say it's deserved. But I mean, ultimately, the question: that you ask yourself, that I would ask myself, that everyone asks themselves when it comes to this movie. Did it deserve to win Best Picture? No, it didn't. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing, how this movie, and some other movies too, I mean, it happens from time to time. It's become defined by its Oscar wins, which is maybe in some ways a little unfair, but I mean, instead of kind of the charming story that it is, and instead of kind of the nice romantic comedy that has a lot of clever aspects to it that it is, the enjoyable movie that it is, it's ultimately going to be the movie that beat Saving Private Ryan for the Oscars. So, you know, a lot of people, if they haven't seen the movie before, they'll come with that kind of bias, and they'll, you know, if they do decide to seek it out, they'll be doing it to want to see this movie. What is this movie that beat Saving Private Ryan? And already kind of decide to hate it before even giving it a shot. To go back in time to see this movie before it won any Oscars, to form an opinion, that would be something I would like to do, but you can't. So it's always going to be defined by those Oscar wins, because I mean, it didn't win a couple; it won 7 Academy Awards. I mean, it's a good movie. I really like it, but 7 Academy Awards. The costumes are great. Gwyneth Paltrow is great. The movie is really good. 7 Academy Awards. I don't know, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. It won what it won. I don't think that should take away from the good and lovely movie that this is. And you know, if you give it a chance, if you haven't seen it, you know, just don't come with that mindset of, you know, I want to see the movie that's so good it beat Saving Private Ryan, because I mean, ultimately, it is a matter of preference. I mean, you know, whatever. And there's probably a lot of, you know, controversy still around it. You know, some people would say, oh, it was the whole Weinstein campaign, you know, how they aggressively campaigned and finally, you know, forced the Academy into voting for them. Others would say kind of 2 big war movies maybe canceled each other's out in the Academy's eyes. Others may say after Titanic's monumental, huge wins, they maybe wanted to go something with maybe a little bit smaller than the big budget Hollywood epic that Saving Private Ryan would be. So there's a lot to consider there when it comes to the Academy portion of it. But if you judge a movie on its own terms, I would say at the very least, this is, you know, a tolerable date movie, I guess. You know, if you're sitting at home watching Netflix, want to throw in a romantic comedy, you could do a lot worse than Shakespeare in Love. So that'll be my review. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff, and plenty more reviews to come. I'll see you later.